The sun hung low over the Serengeti, a molten or bleeding crimson across the horizon, casting long shadows that stretched like fingers across the parched earth. Elias Kane, a weathered photojournalist with a face etched by years of chasing stories in forgotten corners of the world, crouched behind a gnarled acacia tree. His camera hung heavy around his neck, its lens glinting faintly in the dying light. He was alone, save for the distant hum of cicadas and the occasional rustle of wind through the dry grass. Elias had come to this remote stretch of Tanzania to capture the raw, unfiltered pulse of the wild. A project born from equal parts obsession and desperation to reclaim a career that had begun to fade. But nothing could have prepared him for what lay ahead. The air was thick with the scent of dust and decay. Elias adjusted his lens, scanning the horizon for the herd of wildebeest he'd been tracking for days. His water was nearly gone, his boots caked with red earth, and his patience was fraying. Then, a low, guttural sound broke the silence, a rumble that seemed to rise from the earth itself. Elias froze. His pulse quickened, not out of fear, but from the instinct of a man who knew a story was about to unfold. He crept forward, his boots silent against the cracked ground, and peered through a tangle of thorny shrubs. There, in a shallow depression of earth, lay a lion. Not the proud, golden-maned king of the savannah, but a skeletal creature, its ribs protruding like the bars of a cage, its tawny fur matted with blood and dirt. The beast's eyes, once fierce, were clouded with pain, and its breath came in shallow, ragged gasps. Elias's first thought was that it was dying, starved, perhaps, or wounded beyond recovery. A pang of pity stirred in his chest, but he raised his camera anyway. A shot like this could be his redemption, a raw image of nature's cruelty that would haunt the world. But then the lion moved, not with the slow, defeated crawl of a dying animal, but with purpose. Its head lifted, and those clouded eyes locked onto Elias's. For a moment the world seemed to still, no cicadas, no wind, just the weight of that gaze. Then, to Elias's astonishment, the lion began to drag itself toward him, not in aggression, but with a deliberate, almost pleading motion, its claws scraping weakly against the earth. Elias lowered his camera, his hands trembling. This wasn't right. Lions didn't behave like this. They didn't seek out humans in their final moments. He took a step back, then another, but the lion kept coming, its body quivering with effort. He should have run. Every instinct screamed at him to flee, to put distance between himself and this dying predator. But something held him rooted to the spot, a curiosity that bordered on madness. The lion stopped a few feet away, collapsing with a soft thud. Its head tilted, and from its jaws fell something small and glinting. Elias squinted, his heart pounding. It was a metal object, no larger than a coin, etched with strange, intricate symbols. The lion's eyes flicked to it, then back to Elias, as if urging him to take it. He hesitated, his mind racing. Was this a hallucination born of dehydration and exhaustion? Or was there something more, something impossible? He knelt, his fingers brushing the warm, dry earth as he reached for the object. It was heavier than it looked, warm to the touch, and the symbols seemed to pulse faintly under his fingertips. The lion let out a low, almost relieved sigh, its body sagging as if a great burden had been lifted. Elias's breath caught. This wasn't just a dying animal. This was something else entirely. Before he could process the thought, a sharp crack split the air. A gunshot. Dust exploded near the lion's flank, and it let out a weak, pained roar. Elias dove behind a boulder, his heart hammering. Poachers. He'd heard rumors of them in this region. Ruthless men who hunted for trophies and sold sacred artifacts on the black market. The lion's strange behavior, the metal object, it all clicked into place. This wasn't just a lion. It was a guardian protecting something ancient, something valuable. Voices shouted in a language Elias didn't understand, followed by the crunch of boots on dry grass. He clutched the metal object, its edges biting into his palm. The lion's eyes met his again, and in that moment, he felt an unspoken pact form between them. It was as if the beast was entrusting him with its final mission. Another gunshot rang out, and the lion's body jerked, then stilled. Elias's stomach churned, but there was no time for grief. The voices were closer now, their tone urgent and angry. He slipped the object into his pocket and scrambled to his feet, his camera bouncing against his chest. The terrain was treacherous, jagged rocks and thorny bushes that tore at his clothes, but he moved with the desperate speed of a man who knew he was being hunted. Behind him, the shouts grew louder, punctuated by the occasional crack of a rifle. Elias's mind raced. The object in his pocket felt like a burning coal, its weight both a burden and a promise. Whatever it was, the poachers wanted it, and they would kill to get it. He ducked into a narrow ravine, the walls of red stone rising high on either side. His breath came in sharp gasps, his lungs burning from the dry air. The ravine offered cover, but it was a trap as much as a refuge. If the poachers found him here, there would be no escape. He pressed himself against the cool stone, listening. The voices were fainter now, but they hadn't given up. He needed a plan, a way to get back to his jeep, parked nearly a mile away. But more than that, he needed to understand what he held in his pocket, and why a dying lion had chosen him to carry it. The sun had dipped below the horizon, plunging the ravine into shadow. Elias's eyes adjusted to the dimness, and he noticed something carved into the stone wall, a faint outline of the same symbols etched on the metal object. His fingers traced the grooves, and a chill ran through him. This wasn't a coincidence. The lion had led him here, to this place, to this moment. But why? And what did it mean? A twig snapped nearby, and Elias's heart lurched. The poachers were close. He gripped the object tighter, its warmth spreading through his hand like a pulse. Whatever this was, it was worth more than his life, and he wasn't about to let it fall into the wrong hands. Elias Kane pressed himself deeper into the shadowed crevice of the ravine, the cold stone biting into his back as the crunch of boots grew closer. The metal object in his pocket seemed to hum, its warmth spreading through his thigh like a heartbeat. The symbols carved into the ravine's wall loomed in his mind, their curves and angles seared into his memory. They matched the etchings on the object perfectly, a silent language that whispered of secrets older than the earth beneath his feet. The lion's final gaze haunted him. Those clouded eyes had carried not just pain, but purpose. It had chosen him. But for what? The poachers' voices were sharp now, cutting through the night air like knives. Elias caught fragments of their words, Swahili laced with urgency and greed. They weren't just hunters. They were searching for something specific. The object, his fingers tightened around it, the edges digging into his palm. He didn't know what it was, but he knew it was worth dying for, or killing for. The lion had given its life to protect it, and now Elias was its keeper, whether he wanted to be or not. He scanned the ravine, his eyes darting over the jagged rocks and sparse, thorny shrubs. The moon hung low, a pale sickle casting just enough light to betray him if he moved too soon. His jeep was still a mile away, parked near a dry riverbed. Reaching it meant crossing open terrain, a suicide run under the poachers' rifles. But staying here was no better. The ravine was a dead end, its walls too steep to climb without making noise. He needed a diversion, a way to slip past them. A low growl rumbled through the air, stopping his breath. It wasn't the poachers. It came from deeper in the ravine, a sound that vibrated in his chest like a warning. Elias's heart pounded. Another lion? Impossible. The one he'd seen was dead, its body left bleeding in the dust. But the growl came again, closer, and with it, a faint rustle of movement. He crouched lower, his camera dangling uselessly against his chest. The poachers' voices faltered, their footsteps pausing. They'd heard it too. Elias peered into the darkness, his eyes straining. A shape moved at the far end of the ravine, sleek and massive, its silhouette unmistakable. Another lion, its mane full and dark, stepped into the moonlight. But this one wasn't dying. It was vibrant, its muscles rippling under a glossy coat, its eyes glowing with an almost unnatural intensity. The poachers shouted, their rifles clicking as they raised them. Elias's mind raced. Was this lion here to finish what the first had started? Or was it something else entirely? The beast didn't charge. Instead, it turned its head, its gaze locking onto Elias with the same piercing clarity as the dying lion's. For a moment, time seemed to fracture. The air grew heavy, charged with a presence that made his skin prickle. The lion took a step toward him, then stopped, its massive paw resting on a flat stone. Beneath it, Elias saw more carvings, symbols identical to those on the object and the ravine wall. The lion's eyes flicked to the stone, then back to him as if urging him to act. Elias's breath hitched. The poachers were shouting again, their voices tinged with fear. A shot rang out, the bullet ricocheting off the ravine wall with a spark. The lion didn't flinch. It stood its ground, its presence a shield between Elias and the hunters. He didn't know how or why, but he understood. This was his chance. He scrambled to the stone, his fingers brushing the carvings. They were warm, pulsing faintly under his touch, just like the object in his pocket. He pressed harder, and the stone shifted with a low, grinding sound, revealing a narrow crevice beneath. Without thinking, Elias squeezed into the opening, his shoulders scraping against the rough walls. The passage was tight, the air thick with the smell of damp earth and something metallic, ancient. Behind him, the lion roared, a sound that shook the ravine and sent the poachers scrambling. Elias didn't look back. He pushed forward, the object in his pocket growing hotter, almost painfully so. The passage widened into a small chamber, its walls covered in more symbols, glowing faintly in the dark. At its center stood a pedestal, carved from the same red stone as the ravine, with a shallow indentation that matched the shape of the object. Elias's hands trembled as he pulled the object from his pocket. It was heavier now, its symbols shimmering as if alive. He placed it in the indentation, and a low hum filled the chamber, the walls vibrating with a force that made his teeth ache. The symbols glowed brighter, casting shadows that danced like flames. Images flooded his mind, flashes of a forgotten civilization, of lions revered as guardians, of a power hidden deep within the earth. The object wasn't just a relic. It was a key, a link to something vast and dangerous. A shout echoed from the passage behind him. The poachers had found the crevice. Elias's heart sank. The lion's roar had bought him time, but not enough. He scanned the chamber, searching for an exit, but there was none. The hum grew louder, the air crackling with energy. The pedestal began to sink into the floor, the object glowing brighter still. Elias stumbled back, his mind reeling. Whatever he'd unleashed, it was bigger than him, bigger than the poachers, bigger than the lion that had died to protect it. A figure appeared at the chamber's entrance, a man with a scarred face and a rifle slung over his shoulder. His eyes gleamed with greed as he spotted the glowing object. "You have no idea what you've found," he said, his voice low and accented. "Hand it over and you might live." Elias's hand hovered over the pedestal. The object was sinking deeper, the hum now a deafening pulse. He didn't know what it would do, but he knew one thing: the poachers couldn't have it. The lion's sacrifice, the second lion's protection, it all led to this moment. He pressed his hand against the object, and the chamber erupted in light. When the brilliance faded, Elias was no longer in the chamber. He stood on a vast plain, the air cool and heavy with the scent of rain. The lion, the living one, stood beside him, his mane ruffling in the wind. Before them stretched a city of red stone, its spires reaching into a sky streaked with stars. The symbols were everywhere, carved into every surface, glowing with the same light as the object. Elias's pocket was empty now, the key gone, but he felt its power coursing through him. The lion nudged his hand, its touch warm and grounding. Elias looked into its eyes and saw not just an animal, but a guide, a sentinel of something ancient and unbroken. The poachers were gone, the ravine a memory. But the story wasn't over. The world would know what he'd found, not through his camera, but through the truth he now carried. The lion turned, leading him toward the city, and Elias followed, his heart alight with the weight of a destiny he was only beginning to understand.